Thank you for joining me on this video where we are going to talk about the dashboard that was mentioned during the session. I'm going to go through a few of the parts of how to use this dashboard since you already have the template, and I'll show you how you can change the information to match your own. So for example, this dashboard does read from the multiple campuses. So you see the tabs down here like dashboard and then Bayside High and so forth. Now for this template, all of them will look like the one that starts here, Starfleet Academy, with the little Google form in purple as you see. This was built based on the Google Forms, all different ones, one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, all seven of them being fed into this workbook. Now, this dashboard is going to be reading from each of these individual spreadsheets here, the amount of observations that were conducted by each individual. Now, as you're going to see a little bit later on this video, each of these cells actually has a formula. As you can see here, it's a count if formula, which we'll talk about. And this is always checking the observational forms to see how many observations are being made. Now, the formulas just update the numbers here, as you can see in green and yellow and so forth. But what we're going to do is I'm going to show you in the next two different sections how to add data and then how to change this data to fit the information that you may have. Um, as you can see here, we're also using conditional formatting, which we'll also talk about. And here in this example, the maximum number of observations needed per week, because each of these columns is a week. Each of these shows that 5 was the maximum. And the lowest, of course, is 0. So there was a conditional formatting scale done for the color coding to show that. But we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. What we're going to talk about next is adding the formulas and changing the formulas to your own data. Okay, next we're going to talk about the actual formula being used in each of these cells. And don't worry, again, you'll have the template and you'll be able to change this, but I do want to talk about a bit about the formulas itself. So each cell has the similar formulas you can see up here in the formula bar right here, okay, or what function we are using. And as you can see, we're using the count if. And this count if, what it does is it actually reads right here, okay? The name that is shown here is actually the sheet down here. Okay, so for example, Bayside High. And it checks the date in that sheet if it lands between September, okay, 23rd to September 27th, and it matches the coach's name right here. So for example, what it does is it goes into the sheet, it looks at column C for the date, and then it looks at column D for the observer name. And if it matches between that time frame, it's going to add up an observation for it. So all of these cells have something very in common. First, the sheet that they're referencing. As you can see here in yellow, that's what it's referencing for column C, which is the date, okay? And it also references column D for the name or the observer name, in this case, Coach Sansky. So what's going to happen is each of these cells, all you would have to do is make an update to next year's school year or how your school year is for each individual week to count that. And as you can see, the format is the year, then the month, then the date. So you'll just have to change that. Now, at the bottom, there's going to be a totals by week, and this is just a simple sum function right here. So in this case, it says sum from D4, which is the beginning here, to D43, which is the last row here. Now, don't worry about it. What's going to happen is I'm going to show you how to add more information or remove a data as well, and how to change all of these formulas down here in the next section of this video. Right. In this part of the video, we are going to talk about how we can add more folks or replace them. You can always remove a row by simply highlighting the row, right-clicking on it, and then selecting delete row. Depending on how you want to use this dashboard, if you're going to use it for a district, which has all the campuses, or just a campus, which will then just have just the observer names, or maybe a classroom with students, however you want to use this dashboard, you can customize it to your needs. So we're going to go down here to row 42, and we're missing two admirals. So we're going to add one of them. I'm going to highlight row 42, the last row, and I'm going to select insert one row below. Now notice there's no information, but to make our side a little bit easier, we're going to highlight or select from the very beginning to the very end. So from the beginning of B42 to AJ42. And I'm just going to drag this down because what I've just done is I've copied all the formulas that exist in the previous row to this bottom row. Now this is going to be for Admiral Ross first, okay? But this is showing that the formulas is looking up Admiral Paris, as you can see here. So in order to change this, what we're going to do is we're going to highlight the Admiral Ross row. We're going to control find or control F so it finds in the sheet. Click on the three little dots. And what we're going to do is we're going to find Admiral Paris and we're going to replace it with Admiral Ross. Now, what we want to make sure is that we also search it within formulas. So we're going to click here, okay? And now what we're going to do is click on replace all. Now it says it replaced 35 instances. I'm going to click on done. And that is correct because there are 35 weeks here shown. Okay. And you'll notice that the numbers have changed. And I can confirm now that it is looking up at the correct campus, Starfleet Academy, as you can see here, Starfleet Academy. And now the person that it's searching for is Admiral Ross, as you can see up there in the functions. Okay. Now I'm going to do that one more time because we're missing one more Admiral. So I'm going to, again, select the last row. I'm going to right click, insert one row below, and this is going to be Admiral Vance. Okay. As I spoke before, we're going to highlight the previous row. Notice the little blue dot at the end, and I'm just going to drag that down. It's exactly the same as it was in the top row. This time now, I'm going to select the final row. I'm going to find in sheet, three little dots. This time I'm going to find Admiral Ross, and we're going to replace it with Admiral Vance. And we're going to also search within the formulas and click on replace all. 35 instances, correct. And as you can see, now Admiral Vance has all these observations made. So this is an easy way for you to add people that you want. If you, let's say somebody leaves and they're no longer there, you can either leave their information there, or you can just select the row, right click on it, and select delete row, and they'll disappear from that. Now your count's down here. You always want to make sure that it's up to date. As you can see, the sum here is D44 to D42. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here and I'm going to change this to D44 because now we have two new rows. And I'm just going to select it. Again, that blue circle at the bottom right, highlight it across, and now my sums have been updated to reflect all that. So make sure you check on that as well when you're updating your own sheets. Okay, that's it for this section. Go ahead and take a few moments to update your sheet, and then we'll move on to the next section. In this last section of the video, we're going to talk about formatting. As you can see, this has already been pre-formatted and using conditional formatting to show from 0, like a light red, to green, which is the maximum of 5. And in between, there's a color scale that shows 1, 3, 2, and 4, and so forth. Now, this is dependent, of course, on what you consider your maximum number of either observations or however you want to keep track of. Um, To change the conditional formatting, you can highlight the sections of where that is accomplished. By see, I've highlighted this. Go to Format and Conditional Formatting, and you're going to see a couple different scales. Now, this is the first scale that we are using, and according to this, okay, this is how it's read. Apply to range, and the range is actually all of this, and you can go in there to change it manually if you wish, just as long as you select that it's highlighting B4 all the way to AJ44. Okay. Now, how this was done here, I highlighted it only the sections like 4 to 9, 11 to 13, and so forth. So, for example, down here in the format rules, what it's talking about here is the maximum number here that considered in this sample is 5. So 5 observations. If I was to change this to, let's say, 3, you're going to see that more of them are green. If I change this to 2, you're going to see even more green. If I change this to, let's say, 10, you're going to see less of that. Now, the midpoint, I have it set as percentile 50, meaning 50% of 5, of course, was 2.5. In this case, 50% of 10 is 5. So anything that was close to it, as you can see here, it's turning into that light yellow. So if I go back to 5 here, let's say my light yellow, now I'm going to change it to a red. Now it looks very Christmassy, but it's showing that if it reaches that 50%, it would change that color. Now, to make sure it works accurately and perfectly, and if you don't want to have like a decimal, okay, you can change the number here as well. So let's say that, for example, your maximum was 6. Well, your midpoint is going to be 3, okay, and then of course the lowest is going to be 0. You can do that, okay. You can change the colors to ever preset colors, or you can customize by selecting. You can add a color that you wish to use, or in this case, if you want to use, for example, the like the eyedropper, you can select that, and it'll allow you to select the color from the spreadsheet itself. Up to you what you prefer. Once you're done with that, you just click on done and the conditional rules will show up here. Hopefully that helps you and it visually gives you a guide of how to quickly read this information. For example, here at Bayside High, they stopped their observations on the week of September 16th. And then you can see that there was a lot of good observations going on here because of all the greens, but then here it just starts falling off. Something happened in January where there wasn't as many observations because you can see how many yellows there are, especially with South Park Elementary. I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope it helps you with your dashboards.